I said, hey, well, that's the way it is. I don't mind it.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and remember when he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with 2 other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's giving? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh edition of Gabriel Talks Football. Let me get rid of that handsome face there and put this ugly one on. My name is Aldo Gandia. This is GTF, the first of about 7 or 8 shows, taking you all the way to Friday with fresh programming. Take Saturday off, and then on Sunday, we're back at it with Barfly Tailgate Show. But this is the one that starts us all off, and the star of the show is backstage. I'm going to bring him in now. His name is Greg Gabriel. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm wonderful. I'm ready to get this thing going today.
Yeah, you look rather chippy for a guy who witnessed a 21-16 loss against a Colts team that everyone picked the Bears to beat.
Why to describe or define chippy is how you mean it in that sentence.
Well, you're smiling. You're you got a lot of energy. You're ready to combat the naysayers. I saw you on social media yesterday getting into fights with people.
Oh, I didn't stop. I got up at 4:45 this morning. And it was started at about 5:05.
My goodness, Greg. You got to stop that. Let those guys say what they want.
You know what? If people say something, I got to answer them back. I'm not the type that's going to sit back and say, okay. Okay, you're right.
What are they saying, Greg?
Oh, I mean, fire the coach. Quarterback's a bust. The offensive coordinator's terrible. Mm-hmm. All this shit is total nonsense. And we'll back up a little bit. Let's go back to last spring. And why, and I'm not saying told you so here, because I'm glad they took Caleb, but why I didn't want Caleb. What did I say on this show several times? What's going to happen?
The rookie mistakes.
And you're going to lose.
Right. The
team's ready to go forward and win. And if you bring in a rookie quarterback, you're going to lose, because that's what happens with rookie quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. You have to go through the growing pains and the maturity that the quarterback goes through. It doesn't happen overnight. None have had great success. People say, I want us to be like Houston last year and Stroud. Well, Bears are 1-2. Houston last year, game 1, lost 25-9. Game 2, lost 31-20. End of discussion. So don't, any argument they have, I can back up with facts and show them how foolish they are. It takes time. Andrew Luck will be a Hall of Fame quarterback. He lost his first 2 games. Okay, this you could start to see, I could say, use the phrase light at the end of the tunnel yesterday in the second half. Okay, and here's what's going on. See, what happens is Caleb, and people want to say, oh, it's the game plan, and they shouldn't have called this play. Well, you know that I may be wrong on this, but I watched the play at least 15 times this morning. Caleb checked into that option play on the goal line.
No, he didn't.
I think he did. Why do you say that? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Because after the game, he was asked about it, and he was asked, do you have the ability to change the play? And he said, yes. When we broke the huddle, it was 10 seconds, and when we got to the line of scrimmage, it was 5, and it was not enough time to check it.
Change the formation. He changed the back.
That's what he should have done. That was definitely a rookie mistake. He should have called timeout. He had 3 timeouts with 2 minutes left.
He changed the formation where the back was lined up.
That's not what was talked about afterwards.
I don't care what was talked about. I watched the play. That's why I made the note of it. And he put the back on the other side, and he went right into the strength of the defense on that particular play. That's my take. Okay.
What do you think about what PZ says here? Running out of the gun at the goal line isn't because of a rookie quarterback.
There's things you can change, but that's not the big picture. The big picture is 2 interceptions and a fumble. Because if you don't have those, if you just have one of those instead of 3, you win the football game.
True. I agree
not
with
a
that.
question. But here's what the facts are. Oh, how could they not run on the Colts? The Green Bay ran for 200 and some odd yards on them last week. Okay. They didn't run the same defense as they ran against Green Bay last week. These are the facts. This is from the first half. 8 in the box, 15 times. 9 in the box, which you never see, 6 times. 7 in the box, 14 times, and the 2 safeties were within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage. They were very seldom. There might have been 3 or 4 plays the whole first half where they had a safety beyond 8 yards of the line of scrimmage. Remember last week, Mel Kiper caught a lot of flack because he says, I want to get rid of the 2 deep safety look where they're playing 15, 20 yards off the ball. Boy, would the Bears love that. You could run the football.
Right.
Okay? You can't ask 5 linemen to block 8 and 9 guys. And what's happening is right on the at the snap is they're all attacking. They're just saying, block us. You got 11 to block. Try to block us. You can't do it. So what happens? You got no run game. Now, when the quarterback gets experience and figures this out, he's going to check into something quick. He's going to get the ball out. They're going to get a big play. They're going to move the chains. And they're going to say, we can't do this anymore. This is all part of – they've done it 3 games in a row now. And next week, LA is going to do the same thing. They're going to be doing it until he can prove he can handle it.
So where do you put the responsibility on Shane Waldron's play calling? Is he helping this young quarterback? I mean, he threw 52 times yesterday, even against a stacked box. That seems like a lot.
You cannot run against that many people. So you got to throw the ball. And what happened in the second half, I started to see it. In fact, there was one play in the first half, and then he did it again in the second half, where they had the line of scrimmage crowded. And I don't know if I don't remember if he checked out of the play or not, but the first deep ball to Rome, crossing route, Rome started on the right side, caught the ball deep on the left sideline. And then there's another one to deep, the same thing. You start doing shit like that, both people are going to back up. You're not going to see 8, 9 people up close to the line of scrimmage. And what's that going to do? That's going to open up the run game completely. You can't block. Here's what the defensive game plan is. It's been the same plan 3 weeks in a row. We're going to stop the run on first down. We're going to stop the run on second down. And on third down, we're going to pressure the shit out of them. Have fun with that. And so who gets blamed? The offensive line. Well, the offensive line can only block who they get. Now, is there some bad play by individual players? Yes. But the group as a whole, you cannot block that many guys. I don't care what team you are.
You're saying because they're flooding the line of scrimmage, the trenches with defensive players, the offense can't account for everyone.
Right, and the same thing in pass protection. If you're sending pressure, and sometimes it's not a line, they're always sending 5. I only counted a few plays where they were rushing 4.
Mm-hmm. What about the play where Cole Kmet is blocking one-on-one Latu Latu? It's a max protect. Mercedes Lewis is the inside tight end.
I didn't let that play was in the second half, and I didn't go into the second half yet, but he got beat.
He sure did. He sure did.
And you can't say that he doesn't match up against Latu because Latu's 250 pounds and Cole Kmet's 255.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I saw people on social media saying putting a rookie pass rusher beating Cole Kmet means that Cole Kmet is a terrible blocker. I don't agree with that. Cole said after the game, his technique failed him and he was disappointed in himself. And that happens from time to time.
Right.
But there are certain things with Shane Waldron that really give me pause. For instance, on that 4th and goal play, you have DeAndre Carter blocking and at an important position. And we saw that with Luke Getsy. And that's why Darnell Mooney, his season ended early, where you got him in the scrum, you got him in there in the pits, blocking a small wide receiver. It's all of this creativity comes at a price. The creativity of Luke Getsy, the creativity of Shane Waldron, they go away from tried and true brute football and try to get cutesy with stuff, and it always backfires.
Well, let's back up a little bit. On 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down, they tried to run up the middle and didn't do anything. Now they're running against 11 people because that's where everybody was. Everybody was bunched in. Now, what I think you got to do on sometimes you bunch everybody in like that, that brings everybody in on the defense. So spread your offense out a little bit. That loosens up your interior a little bit, not as much as you'd like, but it gives you a little bit more room than when you got all 11 on all 11 within a couple yards of each other. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so yeah, there's things that you can pick and say, this is a coaching thing, but that is not the big problem. The big problem is you got to live with a rookie. If you take Caleb out and you put a guy that says he's got 3 years of experience or whatever and knows what he's doing, comes to the line of scrimmage, recognizes, he'll eat that shit up. And you're going to see it, and you're going to see it, in my opinion, fairly soon, because I think he started to get the grasp of it yesterday in the second half. He threw some really nice balls. Okay. Now, the mistakes killed it. People want to say, well, the defense isn't that good. Bullshit. Defense has given up 20 points once in the last 10 games. Going back to last year. That was yesterday. The defense is fine. Know what it gets down to? Score 21 and you win.
Mm-hmm. Well, the
That's
turnovers.
You need 21 points.
The Bears' turnovers helped.
The Bears haven't been able to score when they get the ball in positive territory after a turnover or whatever. And, if you want to blame the offensive coordinator, go ahead, but you're really blaming the wrong guy. You got to live with a rookie quarterback because that shit's going to happen.
So if you are advising the Bears, how do we get some more points on the board? What should we do with this rookie quarterback as we go through the growing pains of having a rookie? What would you advise them to do?
What you do, you got to do what you're doing, and he's going to improve as he sees things.
Yeah. I feel, Greg, that, there are things the offensive coordinator can do to help this quarterback. And there has been some negligence on the part of Ryan Post to not invest more heavily into the offensive line. The fact of the matter, Greg, and I know you praised him, but Shelton Coleman, whatever the hell his name is, he's that good. That's why the Rams let it go. He's just not good.
They didn't let him go.
Well,
He
they
was a
didn't
free
re-sign
agent.
him. Right. They weren't.
Did you look at their cap situation?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this.
You gotta have all the facts on the line first before you say, because I know for a fact they wanted him back, because that's what a guy within the organization told me.
Well, I don't know why they would want him back. He's never graded highly as a center. Nobody in the league knows the guy practically.
But he wasn't signed to be the starter. Ryan Bates was.
I understand. So he was signed to be a backup, right? To be a flex interior offensive lineman.
Yes.
And the guy that they signed to be the center, Ryan Bates, he might not even play this season. And he didn't play last season with the Bills. He started just 4 games. And so why this love of Ryan Bates?
Hold on, Ryan. The year before he started every game, they went 2 games into the playoffs? Mm-hmm. Okay, they drafted
that may be so, but you can hide problems in the offensive line.
One of the most prolific offenses in the NFL.
It wasn't because of Ryan Bates. I'll tell you that.
Was he part of the line?
He started 4 games. So
I'm talking the year before, 2022.
Right, let me look up his stats, because I think he was a backup then too. But
I know he wasn't a
maybe I'm
backup.
wrong.
I know he was a starter. Last year they drafted a guy in the first round.
Anyway, would you agree with this, that Poles perhaps may have evaluated the offensive lineman that he brought in? Great depth, but there's no superstars. I've been saying this since the offseason. The offensive line needs great offensive linemen. It's like Bill Belichick said. He criticized Ryan Poles and said, Detroit has 3 all-star offensive linemen. The Bears don't have any. Maybe Darnell Wright will be one day, but he's not. They decided to invest money and draft capital on wide receivers and not in protecting the quarterback. What is wrong with Bill Belichick's argument?
There's nothing wrong with Bill Belichick's argument. Ryan, in fairness to Ryan, now let's go back to the draft. How many people were jumping for joy and having orgasms that they took Rome Odunze at 9?
I was. I know that.
Okay. And so was probably 99.9% of the fan base. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what you're saying now is after the fact and sour grapes. So
no, it's not, Greg. It's not, because the draft
he didn't have a 2nd round pick. And that was his 3rd round pick. He took an offensive lineman. Okay, he through no fault of his own, he hadn't been ready to play. Yeah, I guess if you want to put a fault on the Bears, they assumed he'd be ready to play by training camp, and he wasn't. So it set him back. Okay, that you can say is a black mark against Ryan Poles. Okay, and I don't care if the guy played at FCS level or Power 5 level. It doesn't matter. The guy's a talented guy. He was expected to play, be it guard or tackle. I'd say he would have played at guard, but he's not ready, and he probably won't be ready until next year. So they're stuck with that. But I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. You take 8 and 9 people away from the line of scrimmage and go against a normal defense, all of a sudden the line's going to look a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay, so it makes their job easier. They're looking bad right now because they have to block against more than they can account for. It's very difficult to do. Like I said, you could put a bunch of all-pros in front of him right now, and they aren't blocking that defense. It's not going to happen. And, I'll go to my deathbed saying that. So, but as Caleb gets better, and like I say, you saw it in the second half. You saw him start to see things. You saw him start to make some nice throws. You saw him make some real good decisions. That should, if he progresses in a normal manner, be better next week, be better the week after, be better the week after. Hell, he threw for, people want to say, well, he didn't do anything. He threw for 367 yards. It's the 6th highest total in Bears history.
It's not bad.
Okay, so let's look at the positives and not look. You know how I am. I'm positive and optimistic.
No, I feel the same way. I'm very positive about the things that happened yesterday. I was upset that the Bears lost a winnable game, but I walked away out of that game thinking we made progress today. And
that's right.
It's being overshadowed by.
I wanted to win the game too, but you know what? They didn't. So, and I know what I do when I was working there, when I was working in New York. What happens when you know what? You're done with that game. Now you're on to the next game. Figure out what you did wrong there. You try to fix it, and you go on to the next one. But you got to anticipate, okay, now we've seen this. Now this part will be on Shane Waldron. You got to anticipate what the Rams are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to have Caleb ready for that. Because right now you've seen it 3 games in a row with teams crowding the box. In fairness, Tennessee actually didn't crowd the box as much as Indy did. But they had those 2 behemoths inside. They didn't necessarily have to, but they were still playing a lot of people up close. Indy, because they gave up so many yards the week before, and people thought it was, we're going to run for 200 on them. Remember I said last week, don't count on it?
Yep.
You know, when you see that happen, it doesn't happen 2 weeks in a row. You know, so the teams fix it. They said, okay, they're going to try to run. We're not going to let them run. We're putting everybody up close to the line of scrimmage and make them throw.
Cornelius has a question. Greg, is our offensive line good enough or not?
It's good enough for them to win 9 games.
And did they play well enough yesterday to win?
You know, that's a hard question to answer, only because, and I'm not avoiding the question, only because there were some missed blocks. You know, we can go back and there was one. It might have been the fumble play where Matt Pryor just about whiffed, you know, on a guy, and you know, it was a bad play on his part. Yeah, there was a play that Tevin got run over. Okay, bad play on. There are some individual bad plays, but for I'm talking now. The big picture from the whole part, it puts a lot of, what's the word I want? Strife on the offensive line to come up and they look up at the line of scrimmage and they go, holy shit, there's 9 guys there. You know, and we're going to run an inside dive and it ain't going to work. And an experienced quarterback, as soon as he breaks the huddle and comes up the line, he'll see that. He'll check out of it.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. That's right. Caleb has not gotten to that point yet.
Yes. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think he should have, in that 4th down and 1, I think he should have called timeout. There was 5 seconds at the line. He realizes that something isn't right. Got 3 timeouts. There's under 2 minutes left. Call timeout. That's what an experienced quarterback would have done. Let's turn our attention to the coaching because is this coaching staff capable of taking us to the playoffs? We'll start overall, and then we'll go in and laser focus on certain details.
Okay, you know what? Let's go back to last year.
Okay.
And really the first year and a half till they made the trade for Tez, they're playing pretty much a stripped down team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And young guys that are going to make mistakes. So we're leading into coming up to the bye week. Flus is getting fired this week. No question about it. Radio stations were all on it. Flus getting by, you know. Did he get fired? Nope. Guess what? He ain't getting fired after the season either, because that's the absolute worst thing you can do to that quarterback. You got to stick with the plan. And what I think, just from what I've seen, is that George buys into the plan and Kevin buys into the plan. And George, go back to what George said 4 or 5 days before. He was asked the question, do you expect the playoffs? And George had the right answer. We're going to go through a lot of growing pains here. He knew. The only people who didn't know, and part of this I put on the media. Ryan said, yeah, that's the bars to win, the bars to get the playoffs. Well, of course he's going to say that. And of course, that's the goal. But reality is we aren't winning until that guy taking the ball feels real confident with everything he's doing. And there's not a doubt in my mind, he feels a lot more confident. Is he pissed off at someplace? Yep. But he feels a lot more confident today than he did 3 weeks ago today.
So Chris asked the question, what if the plan is wrong? Because it takes guts to evaluate something and say, you know what, looks like we were wrong. We have a coach that can get us from A to B, but he can't get us from B to C, which is championship.
This seems why does anybody even want to think about championship? You're trying, the next step is to compete within the division to compete for a playoff spot. Okay, now if we go back to last year, if we keep Justin, trade the pick, get the haul, they're probably closer to being in the playoffs this year than they would have been going the route that they did. But, and here's the big thing, what was the best thing for the Bears long term? Because as much as I like JF, he ain't as good as Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have any of that talent. Okay. If he knows he has to play within himself as a thrower, and what they're doing in Pittsburgh is he ain't throwing the ball much.
That's right.
Okay. And he's playing, and he's not running the ball anywhere near what he ran the ball here. They're trying to teach him how to play quarterback. They're doing a pretty good job. They're 3-0. They're having success.
Isn't that an example? Isn't that an example of good coaching versus the poor coaching he got here in Chicago?
Yeah, I think Luke Getsy was the worst offensive coordinator I've ever seen. See, people can complain about Shane Waldron, but Shane Waldron's got the skins on the wall. He took a journeyman quarterback that nobody wanted and got his ass in the Pro Bowl in Seattle. And Seattle had a pretty good offense. Okay, so it's, you want to complain about him? Hey, that, it's your dime. I used to have a biology teacher when I was in 10th grade. God, I can't think of his name now. I just know the saying, you could, because you pays your money, it takes your chance.
All right.
So
go ahead.
That's if they want to complain, they can complain. But the crux of the problem is you can find all these little nit things, because people don't want to complain about Caleb because Caleb is the godsend. So he can't make any mistakes. And so they got to put the blame somewhere else. That's how I see it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this. I think most Chicago Bears fans realize that Caleb is a rookie and that he's making mistakes.
You're not seeing my timeline.
Well, I think people like to poke the bear, Greg. If you say the sky is blue, people are going to come on your timeline and say, "Hey,
it's not. It's purple." No, it's red. I get it, and and it's the same, and it sounds like there's a lot, but really it's not. It's like 25 people,
right?
That yep, and they really don't understand. That's why I went through and wanted to bring up those stats, because you tell me how you're going to. Those are the numbers. You tell me how you're going to run against that. How come we can't run? That's why you couldn't run.
Yeah, right. Matthew says, I want Flus to prove me. Well, that's not the wrong one. That's the wrong one. But he goes on to say, I want Flus to prove me wrong. Love his fire on defense, but not as a head coach. Now, somebody here said that Flus should have been fired. Gosh, I lost it. Flus should have been fired.
Should have been fired.
When the Bears decided to bring in a new coach, and so when they decided to draft Caleb, Flus should have been fired to pair him, the quarterback, with the new head coach. Please.
Okay. So what happens when you bring in a new coach? You have a teardown.
Mm-hmm.
This whole defense that you put together, pretty damn good defense. And the parts that you got for that defense, guys that are fit for that game, you're throwing that out the window because who says that coach is going to buy into that defense? He's going to hire his own defensive coordinator. That defensive coordinator is going to have the type of players he wants, which might not be the same type of players that Flus has for this defense. Correct? That's what happens, Aldo. And so you can't. Then what happens then is that you're pissed off, and so you fire everybody, and now you're back to square one again, and you're trying to climb the wall again. And then in a year and a half, while you're pissed at this guy, you got to fire him. I mean, they want to fire the offensive coordinator. He's been here 3 fucking games. Doesn't matter what he did before.
I'll tell you why. I feel my reason for being upset with Shane Waldron is that he is bringing in the same thing that Luke Getsy did, the same kind of talk, and then the execution is different from the talk. He talks about establishing the run, but I understand there's a lot of guys in the box and so forth, but he then goes out and executes something totally different. The fact that the offensive styles were so similar, that perhaps should have been a key, that maybe we need to look at different types of offenses, because maybe the Sean McVay offense can only be run by a Sean McVay by Sean McVay. So there's just issues here that I feel that there's
that
an
offense
address.
is being run by half the damn teams in the National Football League right now.
Yeah, but not very many of them are doing it right.
They're running it in Houston. They're now running it in Tampa. They're running, L.A., San Francisco. A lot of teams are running that offense. Green Bay. It's all pretty much the same offense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, but what do most of those teams have that Chicago doesn't have today? A veteran quarterback.
Well, I'll fight you on that, because look at what happened with the kid up in Green Bay. They picked this guy up off the street.
They didn't do the same game plan with him. They ran the ball.
That's right.
And they ran the ball, and they didn't.
So they changed the offense.
Yes, Indy did not crowd the line of scrimmage like they did against the Bears yesterday.
So he made the proper adjustments, and then in the second week with the quarterback, what's his name, Malik, they made adjustments because they knew they weren't going to be able to run the ball that much after laying down that tape against the Colts. They made adjustments and went out and won another game with a quarterback that they picked up off the street, who is in essence a rookie, doesn't have nearly the talent of Caleb Williams. That to me says that LaFleur brought more ingenuity to the game plan.
Here's what: he's not a rookie. It's his 3rd year in the league. He's gone through 3 years of practice, 3 years of preseason, 3 years of game prep. That makes all the difference in the world. You sit Caleb for 12 games and put him in, and you're not going to see anywhere near the problems that you see from putting him in day one, because of what they've been through already in the league. You saw, Patrick Mahomes didn't start a game until game 17. No, back then it was 16. So until game 16 of the year, he played mop-up duty in 2 previous games. Then he started the last game in a meaningless game for both teams.
Right.
Okay, so, but he had learned a lot, and he had a veteran quarterback in front of him. Okay, so now, but this is a different story. You're putting a guy at the helm right from day one. He was installed the starting quarterback the day he got drafted. Okay, right. So now you got to live with that. Okay, and you got to let him grow. And it's going to be really on him how fast that happens. And I'm a firm believer in that. When he is ready to make the jump, he will make the jump. Can they do some stuff to help him? Yeah. They got to try. Have they been satisfied? Have they tried hard enough? Maybe not. If you want to say some criticism, yeah, that's part of it. I think part of it, I'm looking at some of the formations yesterday, going back when I relooked. There's some formations when they're not spread out enough, and that helps bring the defense in.
Yes.
So I can complain about that. Split those guys out wider.
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. So, because then you're taking people away from the line of scrimmage. Yeah, there's things that they're not totally to blame, but what I'm complaining about is you got to fire this guy, got to fire that guy. He's not good enough. I'm sorry, that's not the answer. It's the easiest thing to say. It's a cop out, and it never fails because it gets worse after that. It doesn't get better. Why? You're going to start all over again, and you're just going to go through the vicious cycle. If you don't, you know how many coaches the Pittsburgh Steelers have had in the last 30 years?
Three.
Yeah. 3.
Right.
Probably really more than that. It's the last 50 years almost.
Right.
Go back to the 70s, almost 50 years.
Yeah, but you can make the argument that all of those coaches were good coaches. We don't know if we've got a good coach with Matt Eberflus.
All I know is that you keep bringing in, hey, we fired Dick Geron, brought in Lovey. What did we do? We gutted the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Because Lovey had his own distinct style.
That's right. So what's going to happen if you fired Flus and you bring in another guy? What's going to happen? Oh, this defense is pretty good, but what's going to happen to the defense?
It could be gutted, or
so now
you could hire Eric Washington. But the fact of the matter is,
now
you got good players.
You're playing shoulda, coulda, woulda, because the guy who gets the job is the guy who picks the DC, right? So that's just the way it works. Mm-hmm. So if the new guy would have to pick, and they're saying, well, you got to hire an offensive head coach. Well, no, if you're going to bring in a head coach, you got to bring in, doesn't matter if he's offensive, defense, or special teams, you got to be the right head coach, not and on any particular side of the ball. But it's still, you're causing, in my opinion, you're causing more harm by constantly changing things. Mm-hmm. It's a vicious cycle. Well, let's fire Poles. Let's fire Flus. Let's change the front office completely, and you're going to change the scouting department. You're going to change. It doesn't work. That's what happens to losers. You've got to grow as an organization, and you've got to go through the hard times to get to the good times.
Would you say that most of those winning organizations dedicate themselves to doing things to protect the quarterback? And if so, where are the Bears in terms of building an offensive line to protect their investment of Caleb Williams?
Okay, I said it last week, and I wrote about it. I wrote 2 separate articles in Windy City. Mm-hmm. My belief that right now, assuming, just watching what we've seen right now, that you got to use 2 out of the top 3 picks on offensive linemen and invest high pick. You got 1 high pick on an offensive lineman in Darnell Wright. Actually, you got 2. Tevin Jenkins was a 2. You pick it, high. Tevin Jenkins, to me, has regressed this year. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you why. Because he should be taken. Now it's his 4th year, and he's in a contract year. You'd think he'd be hungry. Mm-hmm. He's playing like a rookie right now.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing about Tevin Jenkins that I've noticed, and maybe I'm wrong, is that I feel like since he's moved over to left guard, he has not played at the same level. He really likes to play the right guard position more, and his partnership with Darnell Wright has now been separated, and I think both players have suffered as a result of that. The first thing I would do starting Wednesday at practice is move Tevin Jenkins to right guard and find somebody to fit that left guard position.
I got one argument for that.
Please.
He never played right guard next to Darnell Wright.
That's not true.
Yes, it is true. Last year, Darnell Wright was drafted, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Last year, Nate Davis was signed as a free agent, correct?
Correct.
Nate Davis was installed as a right guard, and Kevin Jenkins, who was the right guard, was moved to left guard the day they signed Nate Davis. They never played together.
I'll have to do a little.
You go do all the research you want. Kevin played left guard.
You're probably right, but I remember Jenkins being asked about what side he preferred, and he says, "I love to play next to Darnell."
Right about that part. You're right about. But the fact that he's never, playing with Darnell Wright, it's never happened.
Okay, I apologize.
Might have happened in a couple practices. It's never happened in a game.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. Because a lot of people are now asking questions, rightfully so, about the 2 timeouts that Eberflus took last week, and then the situation where he calls timeout at a point in the game that was disastrous. The Bears score a touchdown. They send out Cairo Santos. He has to blow another timeout to get the offense back out there to attempt a 2-point play.
Okay, part of
Eberflus after the game admitted that it was on the coaches. Please go ahead.
It was that first of all, that should have been determined before the touchdown was even scored.
Agree.
Okay.
Yes.
If we score, this is what we're doing, and that's communication between Flus and Hightower. Who's at fault in that communication? I don't have the answer. Is it Hightower or is it Flus? I don't know which one it was, because originally it's 1, and then all of a sudden it goes to 2, and it's too late, and you're running out of time. But there was a miscommunication somewhere, but neither one of us can sit here and say it was Flus or it was Hightower, because reality is we don't know.
But bottom line, the buck stops with Eberflus, right?
Yeah, the buck stops here. So yeah, it's with Eberflus, and but I'm going to say, and I'm not sticking up for Flus here, but Hightower is the special teams coach, so he should go to Flus. What are we doing if we score here? And you're not waiting until the extra point. You're doing it. You're assuming you score.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you go in and say, okay, so it's done. Okay. That's what the thing was. They said 1, and everybody goes out and goes 1. It was obvious. You saw 1. He lifted up 1 finger right after the touchdown.
Exactly.
Okay. So where was the miscommunication? To me, the miscommunication was on Hightower. Now, I might be wrong in that. I'm just going, I know what I saw. And what I saw was within a second of that touchdown, Flus is going like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, I saw that. Right.
Okay, so who's the miscommunication on?
To me, I'm not even going to venture a guess, because I don't know.
Come on, man, you're copping out.
Well, if he's holding up 1 finger, he's the head coach. He's making the call. Now, the miscommunication, he sat with somebody upstairs. Hightower was in the sideline with them, right. So it perhaps wasn't Hightower. So here's what I think happened, Greg. That was Caleb Williams' first touchdown pass and Rome Odunze's first touchdown pass. As they left the field, they were fighting over who gets the ball. I think that distracted the coaches, and that's where the mistake was born out of. Is that they were paying attention to the celebration.
That distracted the cameramen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it distracted the coaches at all. Because it's funny, because you go back to, because you brought it up, a lot of other fans have brought it up too. What's going to happen to the ball if he throws his first touchdown pass to Rome Odunze? and that's exactly what happened. And Rome's like, no, it's mine. And Caleb's like, no, it's mine. I get it. Cut the freaking thing in half. But that should not have, that's 40 yards down the field from where the coaches are. That shouldn't have anything to do with the extra point try. They're not watching the players, or they shouldn't be. If they are, then that's an indictment of the coaches.
Do you think that Eberflus has had some rough times this season with his clock management and calling timeouts and so forth? Because that's a critical part of the head coach's job, right?
I would say he's not batting 100. That's for damn sure.
I would agree
Or
with
batting
that.
1,000 rather.
He's not the Otani of head football coaches, I'll tell you that.
And that there's coaches. Parcells did. Parcells had our running back coach, because the coach got so much going on in his head during the course of a game. He had a designated coach, and it was the running back coach in this case, who kept track of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many times out route, when to use a timeout, when not to use a timeout. Okay, the challenges last week, you know, we talked about that last week. There's somebody up in the box that is seeing it and saying, you got to challenge it. You got to challenge it. Well, that's the guy that was wrong. He's just saying, because Flus isn't seeing a replay.
Right.
The guy up in the box is seeing a replay.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you what we used to do. We said on the stadium screen at Soldier Field, if you think there's a questionable call, you don't play the replay. Leave it alone. Because you don't want to give the opposing team an opportunity to throw a challenge flag.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, it happened one time. It never happened again. We fixed the problem.
All right, let's turn our attention to the Bears defense. Arguably, they had a good game, with the exception of giving up all these rushing touchdowns and letting Jonathan Taylor basically take over the game in the second half with explosive runs. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah, there was like 3 missed tackles on that, or 2 missed tackles on that long run. Generally speaking, and I haven't watched the replay of that yet, but knowing this defense the way I do, it's a gap control defense, which means, and you're supposed to have a guy responsible for each gap.
Mm-hmm.
When you have one guy blow an assignment, it can lead to a big play like that. You've got to play very disciplined football. Okay, I saw the replay of the play. There was, I can't say if somebody was out of position. I can say there were some people that missed some tackles that ordinarily don't miss some tackles. But you know that he's one of the better backs in the game. Now, how about this though? If that was in a game, if this game if the Bears were ahead and they had a throw, Taylor wouldn't have been in the game. They don't want him in the game when he has to pass block, because he's like Khalil Herbert when it comes to pass blocking. He can't pass block.
Yeah.
You know, so in fact, last week against Green Bay, he didn't play in the fourth quarter because they had to throw the ball.
Oh, interesting. Well, unfortunately, they can't throw the ball with Anthony Richardson. He's pretty bad.
Oh, I mean, I mean, what the Bears, you could say the Bears could have loaded the box and blame that because they, make them throw. They didn't do that, but they've had, in fairness, the Bears' rush defense has been one of, for close to a year now in total games, one of the best rush defenses in the league.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so, dance with who you brought to the dance. So, yeah, I mean, we can pick apart stuff all you want. To me, that is nitpicking, only because, if they turn around, let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
You've lost 2 games by a total of 11 points. Okay. One play here, one play there. You're 3-0, not 1-2. Okay, but you are 1-2. Okay, then go back and you could say Houston last year, 25-9, 31-20. Okay, they were getting beat bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this team, yes, they're shooting themselves in the foot sometimes. And they're not, but when they're getting beat, remember when Trestman was here? When we got beat, we were getting beat by 40.
That's right.
Okay. Now that was tough to watch.
Ain't kidding.
Phil Emery didn't like it that I had some not so nice things to say about Trestman when I was doing some writing for the Score on their website. But hey, is what it is. I said, Phil, got to do what I see. Got to write what I see.
Yeah.
But
he didn't want to talk to you afterwards, right?
Yeah, I mean, I said, hey, Phil, I got to do my job.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like it? That's too bad.
I expected more from Mr. Emery, but he is who he is. All right, so you're still in Matt Eberflus's corner here.
Yeah. I'm not the type. I think you know me well enough that I'm not the type to. I think it's probably from the people I learned from. You can't keep going into panic mode, and you gotta, because all this stuff, like it was on my timeline yesterday. To me, it's all noise, and it's noise because of frustration. One guy said it to me, and I never thought about it, and I said, "Shit, you might have a point there." Half these guys making the noise probably bet the Bears to win.
Probably. Yep.
Okay. And so, or the Bears to cover. I don't know what the line was. What was it, 2.5 or 3?
Yeah, I'm not
sure. It wouldn't have been more than that. And so, they bet and they lost, so they're pissed. And I never thought about that, because I never, I don't gamble, so I don't think in that mode. The guy really had a hell of a point that a lot of the frustration and sourness that we're hearing from a fan base is because people lost money.
Yeah, that. There's no doubt. That's a big part of it. Laz asked the questions, Greg, how many years are you supposed to hang on to these non-winners? And so the case is that Eberflus has a terrible one-loss record. I think it's maybe the best.
If anybody wants to count the first year, they're ridiculous, because the first year don't count.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they stripped down the team before he coached the game. You try to win.
So, but how long do you if he has a
losing part of last year, started off bad. He had a winning record the second half of last year. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier in the year. Team was ready to win. If they hold on to Justin, trade out of the pick, get another load of picks, they're probably 2-1 right now, maybe 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they're all very winnable games. But what was the best thing to do for the Bears 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road? Probably go with Caleb, because Justin is not going to be as good as Caleb can be, much as I liked him. So now you're, as I said last spring, you're taking a step back. You're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is everybody said, oh, they're going to challenge for the playoffs. And they still could. But around here, people want to win every freaking game. Everybody wants to win every game. I get that. But that's not reality. And the reality is that you got to let him go through his growing pains, give him support, and stop calling for the coach's head and the offensive coordinator's head, and let them do what they think is the right thing to do. And then at the end of the season, you make a decision. Is it good enough or isn't it good enough? My personal feeling is it's a done deal. He's already back next year.
All right. We will see. What do you say about people? There's tons of people in the chat room who are crying for Tyson Bagent. They feel like this should have been a year where Caleb sits and studies and Tyson is more capable of playing at a higher level because of his 1 year with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, it's a valid point, but they made the decision to say that gets back to, we might be 2-1 instead of 1-2, because that's what it gets down to, playing or maybe they are 3-0, because again, you're talking 11 points difference between being 3-0 and 1-2. What's the best thing? Just as I said before, what's the best thing for the team going forward? Okay, and they made that determination that when they made the decision to trade Justin Fields and draft Caleb Williams, they made that decision that day that Caleb Williams is going to be their quarterback this year, come hell or high water. So now you got to go through the bullshit that happens with young quarterbacks. Don't forget now, Joe Burrow got in a Super Bowl his second year in the league. You know how many games he won his first year?
I think like 3. Yeah.
4.
4, okay.
Okay. Trevor Lawrence, another number 1 pick. Playoffs the second year in the league. You know how many won the first year? 4 or 5. So, but people here, you can't do that here.
Yeah, I actually sent Peyton Manning's stats from the first 4 games of his rookie year. He was 0 for 4, and he threw more interceptions than touchdown passes. You know, and so he's got
2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, I think.
Yeah, that historically is how young quarterbacks start. Have there been some exceptions? Yes, C.J. Stroud.
Troy Aikman was 0-11, and they benched him.
Yeah, right. So it is interesting. I want to get back to the coaching because I forgot to ask you one question. At the beginning of the show, I asked you a question that was actually submitted by somebody in the chat about why is the quarterback position so difficult to evaluate? And your response was that, frankly, there aren't many good evaluators. And so I'm asking you now, do you think that there are also not enough good play callers on offense in the National Football League? Because I saw a number of people on social media, former players like Olin Kreutz, I believe was one of them, say that comment.
When plays don't go the right way, there's going to be complaints, right? Now, to go back to the quarterback, you look at the college game and what the quarterbacks are asked to do compared to what they're asked to do up here, and it's night and day. It's a 10 times more difficult game. Okay, you don't have in college. The spread offenses started because nobody had enough defenses to cover, or enough defensive backs and good enough defensive backs to cover all those wideouts. So let's spread out the field, throw the ball all over the place, and we're going to score a lot of points because we know they can't play defense.
Right.
You know, so, but that's what's taken over college football. Now, you go back, and I'll go back to a Senior Bowl. It used to be every quarterback in the NFL played from under center every snap. Very few played from the gun. Now it's the opposite. They all play from the gun. Why? Because none of them know how to take a freaking snap from center.
Yeah.
Coming out of college. There was a Senior Bowl one year. We go down there. 6 quarterbacks between the 2 teams. After the first day of practice, they had to scrap the offense they were going to use on both teams because they had something like 10 fumbles between the 2 practices just on the center quarterback exchange. None of those quarterbacks had ever played under center before. And so it's you're bringing a guy, talent's there, but he's still got to learn how to play within the NFL game. And it's not an easy. If it was easy, you'd see all these guys have success right away.
Right.
It ain't easy.
It's not. That is for sure. All right, let's get to some questions. We got about 20, 30 minutes left here. I want you to answer some of these questions. And I do want to say something to the people in the chat room when we're talking about Bagent. I think what people have to understand is that Bagent might be more experienced as an NFL quarterback, but there is no contest right now between the athleticism of Caleb Williams and Tyson Bagent. Williams makes throws that Bagent can't make. Williams has escapability and awareness in the pocket that Bagent will never have. Bagent, I believe, will be a more than capable quarterback in the NFL, probably will be a starter somewhere in his career, but you can't compare what has been achieved by Caleb at the college level to what Tyson has achieved in the pro and college level. It's a no-brainer that you go with Caleb. So that's my little rant.
No,
right.
And I don't disagree with you. I think Tyson today might win one or two more games early on because of what he went through last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's it. But again, I'm going to say, there's such a fine line, and I can't emphasize it enough. And we started to see it yesterday. It's like it's almost like the kid going, I get it. I told you the story about Frank Gore when he was in college. Remember that story I told you?
Yeah.
Okay, so and I'll repeat it for anybody who didn't listen. So I'm at Miami during summer practice or the August practices before the season starts. Frank Gore's last year at Miami, and I'm with. There's one other scout there, Joe Collins, who was a very, very good friend of mine. He was with the Giants at the time. And so we go in to see the running back coach after practice. And we're sitting down and so we're talking about Frank. And Frank was not the easiest guy to communicate with. He was, and I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, he was not the smartest guy, book intelligent guy.
Right.
I think he had, when he took the Wonderlic test, he had a single-digit test score. But Frank was smart, and Frank would work, and he was street smart. So the guy tells us, he goes, "There's nobody I have that works as hard." And he wasn't trying to sell the player. He was being honest, because when you're scouting and you get into a relationship with coaches that you can't bullshit each other, because it's going to come back and haunt you. You got to be honest. And he said, "This guy's a worker." He goes, "But I'm going to tell you a story." And this goes back to his freshman year, and it tells you about the kid and what football means to the kid. He was struggling with the playbook. He was making mistake after mistake after mistake. And so, we said, you got to, keep studying the playbook, learn it. So the kid took it to heart. He kept doing it. He'd stay up real late. Coach gets a call 2 a.m. during preseason camp when Frank Gore's a freshman. Coach says something's going wrong. Why is his phone ringing at 2? It's Frank Gore. He says, "Coach, I get it."
I love that.
And he said, "God strike me dead if I'm lying." He goes, "That's a true story." And that's it. You're going to see that happen with Caleb. And I think we started to see it yesterday. I get it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that he made a leap yesterday, and against the Rams. I don't know if he made a
leap, but he made a jump.
Yeah, there you go. That's a better way of putting it.
And so a lot of this conversation and listening to the naysayers, I'm going to say 2-3 weeks from now, that's all going to be history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to see, there might be something else to bitch about, but it isn't going to be the offense.
Right.
Okay. Because I think it'll come along, and people say, "Well, how could you blame him?" It's not, you're not blaming him. It's totally a real simple concept that every quarterback goes through. It's called inexperience. learning how to play the game at the NFL level.
Right. Yeah, it's a debate that I'm sure we'll be having for the next several weeks, and the only way that it'll get ironed out is with Caleb proving the naysayers wrong, or vice versa. So we'll see. All right, let's get to some of these questions. Brian Hanna joined us actually before the show started. Hey, Alden Greg, hi from the UK. What is going on with DeAndre Swift? He just runs the same routes. How is he our number one back? Your thoughts, Greg?
Well, I'm glad he asked that, and I got the answer. The DeAndre Swift is a space runner. Right now, he ain't got no space.
That's really well put.
He gets his yards by making people miss, having some space, be able to create in space. Like you see him on catches a screen or something, he's being able to juke people and make yardage after the catch, whatever. The way the defenses are playing the Bears right now in the run game, he's actually the wrong guy to give the ball to. And they started to give the ball to Roschon yesterday, who's 220 something pounds, better in between the guards, between the tackle runner, and you're probably going to see more of that. And then when the defenses start pulling back, then it's time to go back to DeAndre and do what he does best. It's not that he sucks. He just, he can't play in that against that type of thing. That's just, every player's got a strong point and a weak point. Right now, they're taking away his strong points, and it's hitting what he can't do, and that's playing that tight situation against a million guys.
Yeah. I almost equate it, Greg, to the Mike Martz, Greg Olsen situation. Waldron wanted a guy like Swift for his style of offense. And then what he is confronted with here are these different defenses that he really didn't account for when he was telling.
If you want to blame him for one thing, you can blame him for that, because I'm not even in the building and I knew that they were going to see this shit.
Yeah.
Every rookie quarterback sees it.
Exactly. Should the Bears have, and I was not a proponent of this, but should the Bears have taken a closer look at Saquon Barkley? Maybe they did, but Barkley perhaps would have been the better solution at the running back position, because he runs in such a versatile way. Or Derrick Henry, what he did yesterday was phenomenal. That guy doesn't age; he just gets bigger.
Who's that?
Derrick Henry, the Ravens back, the former.
I didn't watch any of that game, so I don't know. I mean, yeah, Henry's a totally different kind of runner.
Yeah.
No, and Roschon versus what defenses are throwing at the Bears right now, Roschon and Khalil, to an extent, are better to do this than Swift.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now things loosen up. Now, where you got some space and Swift can do his thing, then he'll get some big runs. And it's you want to say it's a catch-22. You can say it any way you want to say it, but I agree that, and they started yesterday to give Roschon the ball more. I think next week you'll see it again. You'll see it even more so, because that's what he does well.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a hard runner.
Yep. Man, but Saquon is really impressing me. I was like, no way. Both of those guys, Henry and Saquon, they're too old, but they're proving me wrong. Now, they could get injured next week and miss the entire season as a result of.
The only with Saquon is he's had injuries twice. Once was an ACL.
Yeah, against the Bears.
You're if he stays healthy, then you made the right bet.
Mm-hmm.
He gets hurt, and then everybody's screaming, "Why did you do that?" You know how it works.
Yep. I got a question here, a comment really, from someone who I have not seen before in the chat, Lucas Zumi. He This called me
look.
crazy, but it looked like the offense started to come together at the end, as you said earlier, Greg. It was good to see Kmet get involved. And so what I'd like you to comment on, Greg, is Cole Kmet. Boy, I know he's supposed to be an inline blocking, but he sure does play like a tight end could catch the ball and run after the catch.
I personally think, because I saw a couple of Colts stuff, I think he's trimmed down a little bit. And he's probably a step faster than he was a year ago. Somebody said to me after they got an all-pro tight end and they don't throw him the ball. So I immediately answered that he had 9 catches today.
That's right. He looked awesome.
So yeah, but again, that all equates to the exact same thing. Seeing the field, understanding the game, finding your playmakers and getting the ball out to them. And, he was right in saying it was coming together in the second half. It was. They moved the ball well. They had 2 turnovers in the second half, I believe, and shot themselves in the foot. You lose the turnover war, you lose the game in most cases. Not every game, but in most cases. And they lost, I think it was 3-1 yesterday? Turnovers?
Yeah. Yes.
Or is it 3-2? No, 3-2.
3-2. Yes.
2 interceptions.
Right. This is an interesting point by Larry T. Waldron was depending on guys he knew. Everett over Kmet, Travis Homer over Rashawn. As Waldron learned more, yesterday he chose more targets for Kmet and using a power runner like Rashawn Moore. I think there was some favoritism. I wouldn't say favoritism, but he just knew these guys more and wanted to get them acclimated here in Chicago as quickly as possible.
Here's where I disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
Kmet is basically the Y, and Everett is the move guy. The F, they call him an F here, I think. So in the play calling structure, you got, especially if you're going with 12 personnel, you got a Y and an F, no matter how they lined up. And so they were doing that a lot. And there were some situations where they were playing with really no Y and playing with an F. Now, I don't have the answer to does Cole Kmet know the F? Be a good answer. It'd be a good question for somebody to ask, because I don't know the answer to that. I mean, he's obviously capable of it. I don't agree with he was showing favoritism because let me tell you something. The scheme is basically the same scheme as last year. The terminology and stuff is the same. It's all coming from this same tree.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll see how long this tree stands because I'm not sure a lot of the branches from that tree are holding up real well. All right, back to our questions. Tim Willis from the Willis Twin podcast. Greg, in your honest opinion, is this coaching staff going about developing Caleb properly? It's hard to imagine throwing 52 times in the game and not establishing a run game. You basically answered it.
I'd answer that. They had no choice but to do that yesterday. You aren't going to run when there's 8 and 9 players in the box. You can't run.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why that's exactly why I went back and actually charted those plays just in the first half, just to have that answer.
Sure. Yeah.
So I knew that's what it was, but I wanted to have the exact numbers.
Yeah. Well, and as a supplement to that, J2K later asked, can you guys talk about the 52 pass attempts? Is that intentional to get Caleb acclimated faster, or just the game plan? I actually thought about that yesterday, J2K and Greg. I sent out a poll on the Barroom Network. Do you think that throwing 52 times is going to help expedite Caleb's experience in becoming a passer in this game, even if it was sacrificing the football game?
It's an interesting question. I'm going to go back to somebody was bitching, because people said it's funny how people bitch. Okay. How they pick a side. So Caleb's numbers were very average his first game. They were very average his second game. And So I'm saying what I say now. Yeah, he's a rookie quarterback, and this is what happens with rookies. And so a guy comes back, well, Stroud threw for 200 and some odd yards his first game. And I go, yeah, and they lost. And they lost by a score of 25-9. Okay,
Right.
So now yesterday, Caleb throws for 367 or 366 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think they might be jumping for joy, but they're not, because we can't run the ball. Well, you know what, guys, you can't have it both ways. And you got, the old adage in football, you got to take what they give you. And right now they ain't giving you, they're trying to make you throw. They want the Bears to throw, because they know with a rookie quarterback, he might throw it to them as much as he throws it to his own guys. Okay. So we're going to take it. We're going to take away the run, make them throw, and make them throw up in the pocket, because they're not only taking away the run, but they're taking away. You can't even do a bootleg, because they're taking it away. The way they're defensing the team, that is going to end as he gets better. And like I say, you saw some of it. He would recognize some stuff. He might have even checked into it. I mean, I don't have the answer to some of that stuff, where he checked into some of those plays and said, well, I could see this. We're going to do this. Boom. And then he hit some plays, because he did have some really nice throws.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, the eye test tells me Caleb Williams is going to be a phenomenal passer in this game. And once he gets his timing down on these long passes that he's consistently overthrown in these first 3 games, we're going to see immediate results. He'll still make rookie mistakes, and we'll yell and scream at him. But if he hits 50% of those long passes, receivers that are open and are moving towards the
I attribute that he's hurrying a little bit. And
he's amped up, right?
Yeah, he's hurrying it, and part of it is he's gotten whacked a few times, and so you're thinking about, I got to get the ball out of my hand, and so I hate sounding like a broken record here, but it's part of the learning experience. It really is.
Yeah.
And then, as what's even more important is today, when you go back and you see the film, and then you say, well, I threw to this guy, and then you're seeing what was open over there or whatever. It's all part of that growing process. And then each week you try to say, you see the mistakes that you made yesterday, and why you made the mistake, and then you try to take it forward to the next week. Next week, defense is, the defense is going to be throwing something new at you. Now, there could be one, I thought about this, there could be one little advantage, and I don't even know if it's an advantage, but it doesn't hurt. You got 2 coaches on this staff that work for McVay. If anybody knows how McVay thinks, it's those 2 guys.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? And so that, I think, that helps Flus and create, and they've got some guys hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But they still got a veteran quarterback who can be pretty good. I'm not a big Stafford fan, but when he's on, he can be pretty good. To me, he's a stat guy, not necessarily a winning guy. But it's still what they're going to do on defense. And they don't, of all the teams the Bears have played so far, the personnel on defense that the Rams have is probably the least impressive of the other, between the 4 teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more Aaron Donald. There's no great significant pass rusher.
Nope.
So you've got, they will probably try to crowd the line of scrimmage, because that's what everybody else has done. So if everybody else has done and had success, we're going to do it too. But they also might see, but he threw the ball pretty damn good in the second half. Maybe we got to back up a little bit. And if they back up a little bit, that's going to open up the running game.
Yeah. And they got to get that screen game going, because that will really help if they can hit on some screen passes.
But you can't, like play action. Play action doesn't work unless you got a running game.
Well, there are analytics that say that that's not necessarily true. Just the threat of a fake handoff does keep the linebackers
I understand
in.
what you're saying, but you still, when you're playing 8 or 9 in the box, okay, and you tried to, could it work? Yeah. Will it work? A lot of times it won't, because when you're doing that 8 or 9 in the box like they're doing, they're doing a lot of run blitzing. So they're coming towards the line of scrimmage anyway. So if you do a play action, which takes a split second to do that fake,
sure does,
you're going to have a shitload of people in your face trying to stop you.
Yeah. All right, let's see what Ryan Fernandez has to say. Greg, what are your thoughts on Flus burning? Oh, we did talk about that, Ryan. So we won't go over that again. Let's go to 3.5. Houston Aldo, please ask Greg, which game will we have 100 rushing yards? How long will be the learning curve? So we could see 100 rushing yards.
They'll get 100 rushing yards as soon as the defense has stopped crowding the line of scrimmage.
All right, which could be this week.
It could be. I mean, it's when the defenses say that kid might be able to beat us with his arm now. He's got 3 weeks under his belt, gotten a little better every week, and they may back up a little bit. When they back up, the run game is going to get a lot better.
All right, I got 2 questions here that are about firings, so don't get too upset. Chicago's finest. Greg, you worked for Parcells, who believed in building from the inside out. So at pick 9, don't you believe Parcells would have drafted an offensive lineman instead of Roma Dunze?
Well, I'm going to give you the real truthful answer. Parcells didn't make one draft pick when we were there. Yeah, George Young made every single one of them.
Wow.
Okay. Parcells, in fact, during that time, the Parcells year. So the last year of Parcells was the 1990 season, 91 draft. Parcells quit like 4 or 5 days after the 91 draft.
Wow.
Parcells was in the draft room. He didn't spend as much as 1 minute in pre-draft meetings. Now, he knew who he liked. He knew who the, especially with the first round, that might be this guy, or this guy. What Bill used to do, though, is once he found out, okay, who were we interested in? Then he had his own people that he called to find out, basically like cross-checking us to see. And it's funny. A funny story is, remember Dave Meggett?
Sure.
Okay.
Little guy.
Yeah. So Dave Meggett, we draft in the 5th round. Tiny guy.
Yeah.
Just under 5'7", 190 pounds, but he could run a 4.38.
It was Darren Sproles before Darren Sproles.
Right. Not as big in the lower body.
Yeah,
but strong. But anyway, so, and Bill, we already had a short running back at Joe Morris, but Joe Morris was 5'7" and 215 pounds. I mean, he was a bowling ball. So we take this guy, number 1, to be a returner, like Devin, but this is the 5th round, not the 2nd round.
Right.
So Bill is pissed. Number 1, he didn't know who the player was.
No.
And so he didn't know anything about the player. He's pissed off. He wanted somebody else. Who he wanted, I don't know. And this is when the draft was 2 days long. So you had the first 3 rounds and then 4 through 7 the next day. So he's pissing and moaning. I happen to be the unlucky guy who's walking down the hall shortly after the pick, because I got to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom. The draft room's on the other side of the thing. And so I'm coming out of the bathroom, coming down the hall to the bathroom is Bill Parcells. I just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
God.
And he goes, "What the fuck do you think this is, a peanut eating contest? What do you think we're going to do? Eat peanuts off his fucking head?" you know, and,
That's
I
hilarious.
said, Bill, he's pretty good. Fast forward to the next day. Honest to God truth. We're getting ready to start the 4th round. Bill goes, hey, guys, I got to apologize. He goes, I got 4 calls, people saying, do you want to trade that guy if you don't like him? He goes, he must be pretty fucking good. I just looked at him and said, no shit, Bill.
Great story. Oh, that is good.
But, you know, what Bill was he was a ball buster, number 1. And number 2, he would always challenge you.
Mm-hmm.
And not because he didn't believe you. He wanted to make sure you were secure with your own convictions. Because if he could bust you, if he could break you down, then he's going, your convictions aren't good enough. So you had to stand your ground with him. If you back down, you're dead in the water.
I gotta praise that kind of leadership. That it's tough, but it's fair. All right, let's see if we can squeeze a couple more in here. Okay, these are the 2 questions regarding firings. MC Fact, although ask Greg if he would fire Eberflus if the Bears don't make the playoffs this year.
No, because I never expected them to make the playoffs this year. I expect them to be better than they were last year. And I'm going to go back to what I said last spring. You made the decision to bring in a rookie quarterback, and you were going to take a step back before you take a big step forward. I believe the step forward is going to be pretty big. Could come as soon as next week. Might take a couple more weeks. But once the ball starts rolling, this team's going to be a lot different.
I agree with that. Best meat marinade. Greg, you criticized receivers coach last year for receivers being bad. Why not hold Chris Morgan accountable? He's been getting a lot of heat, Mr. Morgan.
No, I get it. I know what his I don't personally know him. I know what his reputation is. His reputation is pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mushroom Club is pretty hard group to please. You know, so that's their own little club. The Royal Order of the Mushrooms. Been going on for about 30 years now, maybe a little longer. And Jim McNally was the president, might have even been the founder. Great offensive line coach. Remember Bob Wiley, he used to be here with Duran?
Yeah.
Duran's a king mushroom too, or rather Wiley's a king mushroom too. So is Harry. Harry Heastand is a mushroom.
Wow.
But
so what
any
about
line
Morgan?
coach worth their shit is a mushroom. Trust me. But yeah, there's guys that are having a bad play here and a bad play there, but I'm going back to 5 can't block 8 and 5 can't block 9. And so that's going to make the group, and the same thing in pass protection. When you're doing a lot of stunts and you're sending more than that, you got guys to block, then it's tough to block them all. And so, yeah, rightfully say, okay, it's the offensive line. Now, is the offensive line played to the standard we want them to play just as a group? No, they have to get better.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then yeah, part of that is going to be on Morgan. Part of it is on the players themselves. Part of it's on Morgan. What some people don't want to do, which kind of bothers me, you always want to fire the coach, unless it's Nate Davis, and then you want to fire the player. But you know, the players they got to play the game.
By the way, just as a parting shot here, I'm asking people in the chat room not to use gay slurs and stuff like that. Just make your point about who you like and who you don't like. Argue anything I say or Greg says. Do it professionally.
Well, by the way, I got to say
here.
this. I was going to do this earlier, and I didn't because we got into this right away. And it was last week. I got a little harsh with one of the questions askers, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to be calmer today, and really, I've done this for a long time. My aim is to kind of teach and explain what's going on and explain from the front office point of view what's going on. So I didn't mean that last week, and I don't remember who the question asker was, but my apologies.
Yeah, and I frankly don't remember any moment that I thought was out of line. Although on social media, there have been a couple of times when I said, Greg, calm down. Guy politely asks you a question, and you go, fuck off.
No, nobody asked me a question politely. No, there's
Maybe I'm
because
wrong.
they hide behind, there's no name there.
Yeah.
Fictitious name, no face.
Yeah.
So
5 followers.
It can be, one guy. I mean, he must have sent me a minimum over the last 2 days, 20 comments.
Wow.
5 followers.
So he's
5 followers.
Yeah, he's just trying to.
He said, "Oh, you're going to block me. You're going to block me." I said, "No, I'm not. It's not worth it. You got 5 followers. Why should I waste my time?" I said, "Nobody can see what you write anyway."
Yeah. Well, you're getting a lot of compliments now, like Kay saying, Greg, you're the best. Whether we agree or not, you always make us think. And that is exactly what he does. He's going to challenge points of view. He's going to be very authentic about it. And he will admit if and when he's wrong, he will admit it. And I really appreciate that.
No, but I'm
Greg.
infallible. You know how in the Catholic Church they teach you the Pope's infallible?
Yeah, that's why I don't go to church anymore.
Come on, we got to have some fun. You grew up a Catholic, didn't you, with that name, Gandia?
Oh, absolutely, man. We were paying more to go to Catholic school, my brother and I, than we did rent.
Hey.
That was a lot of money.
I got my knuckles whacked a couple times by a wooden ruler.
Ooh, yep, indeed.
Back then, in the days when they believed in corporal punishment.
That's right. I think they still believe in it, but it's against the law.
Yeah, well, different world. That's for another argument or another conversation.
A lot of jokes about Waldron loving the shotgun. Here's one of the better ones. Waldron sits shotgun in a cab. Good stuff. Greg, we're going to be back here next week, and we're going to be talking about a win against the Rams. What?
I hope it's a win.
Yeah,
I got to look. I think the Rams beat the 49ers yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah, in a dramatic game, yes.
I did not see any of that game. I got to watch that game because I don't have Sunday Ticket anymore. I got rid of DirecTV 2 weeks ago. I got Xfinity, but when DirecTV lost Sunday Ticket, I just stopped getting it because I got NFL access, so you get the games the next day. Which if it's a game I want to watch, then I watch it. But I want to see what the Rams did. Now I know that. I mean, San Francisco's hurt. They got a lot of injuries. Mm-hmm. I think they've had some problems too. You had a lot of guys sitting out for contract problems and missed all of camp. Wide receiver, a tackle, and now you got a defensive end out. Quarterback who played good for a year and a half is coming back to earth a little bit. And because, you got a lot of tape on him now, so you can figure out how to stop him. But what the Rams actually did, I have no idea because I didn't see one. Did you see any of the game?
I saw bits and portion. I was watching on NFL Red Zone, so they would cut in and out of the game. The 49ers, just their offense changed in the second half, and the Rams were just dropping 8-9 guys back, and Purdy is just running around looking for an open receiver, tons of time to throw, but he couldn't find anybody because the Rams defense
let me add, and McCaffrey didn't play, right?
McCaffrey did not play.
Okay, so I'd love to see somebody drop 8 or 9 back against the Bears. The run game would open up.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and then the short pass game would open up too.
Right. Yeah, I got a question for you because not a lot, but I saw some people say, including some of the Bears beat reporters, say that perhaps Caleb should consider running on some of these plays, because he's running around back there, but he's always been applauded for keeping his eyes downfield and trying to make a play. But maybe he should make it with his legs. What do you think?
I don't think he's against it. I mean, I'm guessing here, to be honest. I think when the run is there and he sees that it's there, he has taken off. I think there's like a couple times last week where he's, it was miraculous that he even escaped a sack to get a throw off. That was pretty good. I mean, he doesn't have the speed that Justin has, right, but he's got probably quicker feet, elusiveness type thing. I mean, it's a good point. You really got to look at the end zone copy of the tape and see exactly where everybody is situated. He's trying to find an open man and get him the ball. If I have one complaint that he's probably done a couple times too many is trying to hit the home run instead of what's there underneath. Take 5 or 6 every time you can get it.
Indeed.
And then, you're living you throw it deep and you miss, you got to punt. So the idea is you got to move the chains, and that stuff will come. Getting Keenan back will help. It'll help tremendously, because there's you got the top 3, but there's a big drop off after that, and one of them's missing, and so that doesn't help at all.
No, it doesn't. That is for sure. By the way, with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua likely out next week, it will probably mean that the Rams are going to try to run the ball a lot. And Denton Fender asked us over about an hour ago, what do you see what's wrong with the Bears' run defense?
They really gave up one long run, one big, the touchdown run.
Right.
You're going to give up, one chunk play every once in a while. It just happens. Somebody blows an assignment. Somebody misses a I'm not worried about it. It's been too good for too long, too consistent for too long. I'm more worried about Stafford having a big game, because Stafford's capable of having a big game. But if they're missing all the receivers, they might be forced into running. And if they're forced into running, then, you got to play a little tighter. Depending on who the receivers are. I mean, it's not like you're playing Richardson, who, you saw Richardson, he had an out where he threw the ball into the first row of the stands, for Christ's sake.
That was awful. Jeez.
And you're playing a guy who's an accurate passer. I just don't believe Stafford is a true winner. Going back to when he was in college, he won one season, he won a Super Bowl, and God love him for that. But I think over his career, I think he's been great numbers, average player.
Yeah. Well, another great show, Greg. You hit one out of the park again. I was really anxious to get your thoughts on the game and what could happen next week. We got that. We will be back here next Monday at 11 a.m. Central. I want to ask everyone in the chat that's joined us live to not only hit that like button, but also share this program on your social media devices and let people know what Greg is doing here at the Power Room Network. For Greg Gabriel, for myself, Aldo Gandia, we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
See ya. Thank you.